Welcome back to Autodesk Digital Builder Podcast. I am your host, Eric Thomas. We are once again coming to you live from Greenbuild in Los Angeles. Today, we are having a conversation about what AI and data centers and sustainability mean for how and what and why we build in the future. We've got a big AI boom coming. There's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of data center demand. To help me tell that story today, I'm joined by Sara Neff, the General Manager of Sustainability and ESG at the Microsoft Cloud Operations and Innovations. Sara, how are you doing today?
I'm doing so well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this conversation all week, and I think it's so incredibly important right now because just the scale and speed of data center development is pretty crazy, and the excitement behind that obviously spins back to AI. And so we've got a lot of conversation kind of digging into here, but I'm going to throw my first question at you. So data centers are often described as the factories of the digital age. And as demand for AI and cloud computing continues to explode, how do we reconcile this growth with the urgent need to reduce emissions and resource use for the built environment? Like, there's a lot in that question, and I know, but like, where should our heads be at right now? It's a lot to think about.
Absolutely. I think the important place to ground ourselves in for this, which is that for Microsoft, we have not changed any of our climate commitments. It's not we grow, so no more 2030 goals. Microsoft is still committed to being carbon negative, water positive, zero waste, and protecting more land than we use by 2030. Happy to say the land goal's already done, so I don't have to worry about that one as much.
Awesome.
We just need to manage that in terms of growth. So if we're building more, we need to do more. And we're up to that challenge. So if, for example, we need more carbon-free energy, we are committed to making sure that we have enough carbon-free energy to meet the carbon goals. We know we need more tools out there. We know we need more low embodied carbon concrete, which is why we are doing deals for low carbon concrete. Same for low carbon steel. Everything. It's just more of. So the balance is just keeping the commitment going, planning, being very careful about it, and then continuing.
I'm encouraged to hear that the perspective is rooted in everything you've just shared here, because I feel like a lot of folks are a bit anxious, and understandably so, because there's so much change in the mix as far as just the resource consumption that folks are speaking about. I think I hear about that most frequently as far as just the water and the energy and the electricity. And so, beyond that, water usage, embodied carbon, and materials, all very critical factors. So which of these less visible impacts are underestimated? How can we address them?
Absolutely. I think that the impact that I think people don't think about enough is that well more than half of a typical data center's embodied carbon is in its HVAC equipment, in the cooling equipment itself. And so we need lower carbon HVAC. I'm happy to say that actually Microsoft recently had an article we collaborated on published in Nature about a life cycle assessment of HVAC equipment. And I will just tell you the conclusion, which is the equipment that most leads to energy efficiency is also over its life cycle the lowest embodied carbon, which is really, really great. And so that's the kind of thing. We don't think about our HVAC equipment particularly much, but it's a huge source of embodied carbon. So we love talking about, for example, zero water for cooling. All of our new designs don't use any water for cooling. It's a closed loop system where it's direct to chip cooling. And so it doesn't evaporate the water, which is great. But also, I really care about the embodied carbon of all of that equipment. And so we're addressing that head on.
I chuckled a minute ago, and it wasn't about what you were saying. It made me think back to when I was a lot younger than I am today. In high school in particular, I was a tremendous nerd, and I had a lot of computers in my bedroom. I think it was more than 10, which is an embarrassing thing to say in a public forum. But here we are. And I just remember my bedroom is in the attic of my childhood home. And in the summertime, it was like a furnace. It was miserable. And so just your example of so many computers, so much operating at high capacity in a way that, obviously doesn't scale from my bedroom nerdiness as a young person, but the example really does resonate. How do we keep all of this cool? And I'm very encouraged to hear that there are paths forward that don't use the resources and the level of consumption that I think might be this more standard narrative that we hear about AI anxiety and data center anxiety right now. So it sounds like there's a lot to be encouraged by, especially for organizations that see this and they recognize, okay, we need to do better. We need to be very intentional about how we move forward. So I'm really glad to hear that. I'm also curious to hear from your perspective, what are some of the more promising ways that AI can help design and operate greener and more efficient data centers. Like it's a little bit of a feedback loop, but like where are today's limits? But how does AI play an effect in the work that you do?
So I have to tell you that what excites me about AI right now is going to sound very boring. I get very excited about boring. And so what I'm really excited about for AI right now are things like using AI for leak detection. AI is really good at looking at a data set of what the water consumption is supposed to be, realizing when there's aberration and flagging that and making that actionable right now. I love the idea of AI as something that can change set points to help even non-critical environment like admin spaces be cooled more efficiently. The current sort of thing I'm in love with around AI is AI for concrete. So I used to work in construction and I have this deep obsession with all things low carbon concrete. AI is really good at taking a ready mix supplier's data set of all of the mix designs that they put together and then running that through an algorithm that helps you identify what is the lowest possible carbon mix design that meets the other performance requirements and schedule and whatnot. So those are the things that make me really excited. Like here are examples of AI saving tons of carbon, saving gallons of water, saving energy. It's all happening. That's the right now. I think we're all good at AI for process efficiency, and that's really, really important because that frees up more time to help do regular efficiency work.
Of course.
But I really get really excited about AI tools now for finding those reductions.
And I think this is one of those examples when I talk to folks about this technology, whether you're looking at machine learning or AI more directly, is this is such a exciting augmentation for the work that people themselves are already able to do. Imagine the scale of the scale of the data centers that Microsoft is employing and the ability to analyze such a astounding amount of information to look for those optimizations and those opportunities in areas of risk. And in folks that, like, you think about a person just sitting at a computer with the more traditional tools they might have had available to them, they're not able to make those assessments, especially in real time, to figure out where the gaps are, where the improvements are happening, or where something might be broken. So I love your boring example, and quite frankly, I don't think it's that boring because it's kind of fundamental to people being able to do their work in a more efficient and effective way and scaling it in a way that we just wouldn't be able to do without this technology available.
Absolutely. I see so many opportunities. I love AI for process efficiency, and that's really, really great. And that speeds up a lot of processes for sustainability. But I also just love it for direct impact. And that's something AI can do now.
And I had a great conversation. If you're out there listening and you haven't heard our discussion with Ali Scott and Joe Spiker, our Chief Sustainability Officer, I asked him a very blunt question as far as the impact on that AI has tied to sustainability, because I was concerned about it. And his perspective is it's both a headwind and a tailwind right now. And we need to continue making progress to ensure that it's firmly in tailwind land. But the tools and the innovations and things that you're just describing here, I think are really great examples of those tailwinds in the things that will continue to move the needle forward, especially as organizations like Microsoft are making choices that very deliberately aren't increasing the amount of water that's being consumed, and all those examples you shared before. And so I came into my initial discussion with Joe, for example, a bit more concerned than I feel today. And so I'm encouraged that things are moving in a really, really enlightening direction. And we have a really great path forward where this technology is going to make a big impact on the work that everybody here at Greenbuild is doing.
Absolutely.
I want to take a look at collaboration a little bit more
Yes.
closely. And I think anything in the AECO space that needs to be changed at scale, this isn't one company, this isn't one vertical, this isn't one country. We all have to kind of get into this together, looking at radical collaboration specifically. And I want to define that for folks too, because it's a concept that's newer to me. Radical collaboration, if you're not familiar, it's about working together in a way that's built on deep trust and openness and shared responsibility. So it goes beyond service level cooperation, creates really strong relationships, but it also requires a mindset shift for a lot of folks. The biggest example for me would be integrated project delivery. This comes up very often where people are sharing information, working together in a way that is much more transparent than a traditional construction methodology. And so I'd like to take a look at it more broadly from your perspective. Where do you see the biggest opportunities for radical collaboration that goes between technology and design and construction to really accelerate this? Like it touches all aspects. I love your thoughts there.
I think a really good example of sort of the kind of collaboration that we're doing now that is, to me, really, really innovative. I'll use the example of green steel. So Microsoft did a deal with a company called Stegra to for 95% reduced embodied carbon steel for a new facility. It's actually in Sweden near the Arctic Circle, which is where you have hydrogen ability. So we did a deal for both procurement of physical product as well as procurement of environmental attributes. But I'm Microsoft. I don't buy steel. I buy general contracting services and I buy owner furnished contractor installed HVAC equipment. Okay, we want to take physical product. We don't take physical product, right? So now we have to work down our supply chain radically. How do I work with suppliers making rebar to get them to, take some of that? How do we work with our HVAC suppliers to get them? So all of a sudden now we did this amazing procurement deal. And now we're having to radically collaborate with places in our supply chain that is not typically how it works, to be able to really teach everybody how to get green steel and make there be more of it in the market. Like that to me is wonderful and transformational. And that's the kind of thing that makes me so excited.
I love that example too, because there's a lot of thought that goes behind starting that process. And I think
Yes.
it can be intimidating for folks because you are opening Pandora's box now where you've previously pushed that risk down to the general contractor, as you pointed, where you go, well, we want the building, we want these requirements, but somebody else is responsible for getting it there. And in every choice that you make as the owner or the general contractor or the designer, as you move down the entire supply chain, does have big implications, whether it's a small modification in the design plans. This is changing shipping and what's being delivered to site and so many different things. And so I love that you're looking at it this way, and it's easy to miss opportunities for improvement if you're not asking the questions and you're not looking for opportunities for refinement. But your general contractor has to be on board for that and all of their suppliers. And it requires, I think, some probably uncomfortable conversations at different points of the entire journey to make sure everything is above board.
Well, I really like to think that everybody wants to do this kind of collaboration, right? But these supply chains are complicated and we're really needing to understand them. So I'll take concrete. Concrete is a very complicated supply chain. There's us, the owner developer, then there's the general contractor, then there's the concrete subcontractor, and then there's the ready mix supplier, and then there's the cement manufacturer. And all of those teams need to be on board for it to work. That's the kind of collaboration where we're having to think 5 steps down the supply chain. We need to make sure that we've set it up for success. So we, for example, have GWP, global warming potential limits for concrete and steel for those materials. So we're setting out from the get-go that here's, these are the minimum requirements. So then how can we do more? And we have to really understand what the requirements are all the way down the supply chain in order to really have that success.
It makes sense though. And this actually tees up my next question nicely. And obviously it's easier for us to just sit here and talk about this objectively and say, well, it's nice if we can all collaborate together and work in a more open way, but there's a lot of regulations and restrictions and complications. How are emerging policies and regulations shaping your approach to sustainable data center design and operations?
So I can flag a couple that I think are really transformational. One is the Energy Efficiency Directive in the EU, which is a requirement, and it's really helping drive sort of performance across the entire market around how do we, make our data centers, operate more efficiently? How do we make sure that they're not using refrigerants that have higher global warming potential than is needed, that kind of thing. Also, there's a new EU data center rating scheme. So now there'll be sort of a common language for rating the energy consumption and other data centers. And so I think that's going to really increase the visibility and really incentivize the entire market to be more and more efficient. I think another thing that people often don't think about is the EU Recovery Fund. So this is a fund for governments to tap into to do COVID recovery, but you can only tap the money if it goes to a sustainable business. Okay, then that's very transformational when we want to be that partner for those customers, but we have to show that we're a sustainable business. And so all of those things, I think, really drive change across the market, not just for Microsoft.
I love the examples you've shared here. And I've not even joked, but very bluntly said in the past, we can learn a lot from our friends in Europe here in the United States. They're doing some incredibly progressive and thoughtful approaches to how we work together. Like ISO 19650 is a great example as far as just having a baseline set of expectations when you work together, because especially if you enter a new joint venture, a new collaborative agreement as a general contractor, and you've never worked with them before, you have to establish these things. How do we name our files? How do we do all of these very small things? And it seems very short-sighted at times. And I don't mean to throw shade at our friends in the US. They're half of my audience, but we can learn from being better because it makes speed to market go faster as well. Because you don't have to have that conversation. You just go, well, these are the standards we're going to adhere to. Here are the regulations. This makes sense. And I love to see that they're building on some of that hard work that's been happening in the last 10 years, 15 years, to employ that in the world of sustainability and data centers, because that's incredibly important.
Absolutely. And I don't want to imply that it's only Europe. Some fun stuff.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's all happening.
But it's, when we have, it's such a good point that you bring up, which is standardized forms of measurement really enable progress because everybody knows what they're doing and is marching to the beat of the same drum. I think that's incredibly important and one of the great sort of things that regulation can do for us.
Absolutely. They're doing some great things in Southeast Asia and in Singapore as well. They're very future focused. And I love talking to folks who are deep in the weeds, and like, it's painful to get there sometimes because you have to make a lot of tough choices, implement these standards in a way that feels equitable for everybody who's now beholden to them. But like, the long-term path has a huge benefit for everybody that's working in the market. I'll move on from this because I could talk regulations.
It makes my job very exciting.
Well, I want to take a look at the future here. And I know we talked about how AI is reshaping what's happening today, and I appreciate the examples you've shared, but let's look out the next decade or so. How do you see AI really impacting the broader AECO world? What are you excited about? Where do you think things are headed?
Where I'm really, really excited is the idea that everybody throughout the AECO world, as well as all of our suppliers, gets high levels of AI fluency. We're just in the early days of knowing what AI can do for us. But I see a world where everybody knows that we have to achieve our climate goals, knows that this is a clear area of focus, and knows how to leverage AI in their own sphere around design, around operations, around construction to do it. Even being at Greenbuild has been so exciting to hear how other folks are using AI for construction waste or preventative maintenance or so many things within their spheres of influence. And that's what I'm so excited about the future of. I really see, and I don't think it's going to be that far away, where everybody who helps us site, build, design, operate, deconstruct, decommission a data center knows how to do it with a clear focus on climate and with AI making it go faster. So that's where I see the future going.
I love that answer too. And it really touches on something I consider incredibly important is organizations are offering training and education to their folks because especially as our workforce in construction in particular continues to get older, there's a lot of hesitancy, and understandably so, because they don't know where to start. I've spoken to a lot of contractors who have put together like executive councils at their organization to really evaluate and try AI tools, but you also have to give people a safe space to give this a shot. But the other aspect of it too is you have to train them to understand where the risks are. So you're not putting information into the wrong tools that might be public and all the other logistical legal challenges. And if you haven't listened out there to my conversation with May Winfield a couple of years ago, we get really into the logistics of the legal challenges behind AI to make sure folks are protecting themselves. And so if you're out there listening and you haven't heard that one, make sure you go back. But I think there's a lot to be optimistic, but we have to set people up for success. And it's just an exciting moment as everything changes. And to your point, I think the hockey stick is going to continue to accelerate as far as how quickly everything happens now that the infrastructure is really starting to take off.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that the people who interact with a particular issue are often the best equipped to go try to solve it. And so when we get those people AI trained and when they know how all the risks are managed and whatnot, they are finding solutions that I never would have even thought about. And that's really what's really, really exciting is so many people finding solutions really, really fast.
The folks at Greenbuild, the excitement of all of these conversations, you can just feel it. And I'm quite optimistic that, a lot of cool things are coming. Well, I got a couple more questions for you today, Sara. If this audience out there listening today could take one bold action in the next 12 months, what would you recommend they do?
So I'm going to get back to being boring. Find a use of AI to save a ton of carbon now, to save water now, to reduce waste now. We don't need to wait around. Everybody has this ability. I'll use an example. So we have one of our customers is a Japanese grocery retailer. They cut down their food waste 50% using the AI tools we already have because they're just doing better demand forecasting. Right, using AI. So that's a right now thing. We don't need to wait for AI to help us make climate impact. And yes, AI is also really great at planning and telling you what interventions in your business, in your building, whatever are good. And those are great. And we should all be doing that. But my challenge would be find a really boring thing to do that gets all of us towards our environmental goals right now. There's not a need to wait. We're not waiting around for, I mean, the tools will continue to get better, but they're very powerful now. So that's what I would say.
I like it. And I always recommend folks too, like if you're not sure about these tools and you haven't used them yet, like try something in your own personal life as well, like something small, just to get a feel for how it works and learn a bit about prompt engineering, because the way that you interact with agentic AI specifically really influences and impacts what you get out of it. And so there's a lot to learn and experiment with. To your point, I'd say don't wait, like figure out like how you feel and play with these tools a little bit. Try to find something, if you're really concerned, that's a little bit more risk. But I love your challenge of find something now that makes an impact with carbon, because this adds up. This is all of these actions now have such an impact on our future. And so I love this. Like, let's go.
Yeah, let's go.
Well, I've got one question left for you today. One I ask every guest, and it's my favorite part of the episode. What is one tool that you use on every project, no matter what you're working on?
So again, I'm going to be your boring person. My kids think I'm very boring. I love me a roadmap, and I love having everybody knows what the objective is. I cannot tell you how easy it is on a project for everybody to think they're headed in the same way, in the same direction. And then you find out that this person really thought we were solving for this, but this person thought we were solving for that. And all very, very, very well meaning. It is so important to have alignment around what we're doing and as specific and quantifiable as possible, because otherwise things get muddled very, very quickly, and you realize that you are not all heading in the same direction. And so, yeah, I'm a big fan of a meeting to set the roadmap and get the objectives written down. You can't do it verbally, because then people are like, wait, I heard this and you heard that.
Yeah.
So yes, deep believer in putting in any project, no matter what it is, putting the time to plan it correctly up front, because you're going to save yourself so much pain.
Your answer makes me so happy.
Oh, good.
As somebody with ADHD, I need things written down because I want to make sure I understand the guidance directly. And it's hard for me to just keep it in. You tell me the 3 objectives and 20 minutes later, if I've gotten distracted, I might not remember those anyway.
Right.
But the ability to keep everybody on track and communicate it in a clear way is an incredibly equitable way of managing a project as well, for regardless of whoever you're working with. Also, it's a great way to make sure that you don't have endless scope creep, which is very easy to happen if you have this nebulous project. So I think that's a great tool. I hope everybody out there listening, adopts that and makes sure they're really clearly documenting where we're headed.
If I could pick one more tool, I would say a thank you note. I really think gratitude is really, really important, and something that often gets missed when we're trying to work so fast and go so hard. I think it's really, really important to say thank you, and here's why your contribution mattered. And then that's how you get great collaboration going forward.
You're speaking my language left and right today, and I appreciate it. So 2 great answers. I appreciate the bonus one as well. And for everybody out there listening, of course, this is Autodesk Digital Builder Podcast. If you've enjoyed this conversation today, or you're wondering what the heck we're all about, we are a video-first podcast, so you can find us on YouTube, but we're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere you get your podcasts. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm fairly sure I'm the only Eric Thomas that works at Autodesk. And until the next time, goodbye.